Lucas Grant wasn't just any man. He was the face behind one of America's largest tech empires, a billionaire whose name opened doors and shut down sincerity. But tonight, under the flickering light of a Chicago street lamp, he stood in a cheap hoodie, gripping a paper bag filled with everything he owned for the next few months. His empire? Gone. His identity? Hidden. His mission? To find love without the weight of wealth. The idea struck him after one final gut-twisting breakup, a relationship that ended not with tears, but with an NDA. He was tired. Tired of lies wrapped in affection, of women who saw bank accounts before souls. The only way to know if love was real was to strip away everything unreal. The plan? Simple yet insane. Lucas would vanish from the billionaire spotlight and take a job at a local McDonald's on the South Side. No more boardrooms. No chauffeurs. Just grease-stained aprons, minimum wage, and people who didn't care who he was. His new name, Luke Graham. The first day was brutal. The manager barked orders, customers threw tantrums, and the smell of burnt oil clung to his clothes. For the first time in his life, Lucas understood what it meant to earn $1, not just make one. Then there was Maya Brooks, sharp eyes, quick words, and a work ethic that left no room for nonsense. She wasn't impressed by him. In fact, she barely noticed him. But that indifference, that honesty, hit him harder than any headline ever had. That night, as the restaurant emptied and the neon sign buzzed above them, Lucas found himself cleaning tables beside her. She laughed once, barely, but it was real. Not the polished laughter of high society charmers, but something pure. It scared him how much he wanted to hear it again. Every shift brought him closer to a world he never knew. Co-workers with dreams bigger than their paychecks, customers surviving on hope and coffee, and Maya, whose heart carried both strength and exhaustion. The deeper he sank into this new life, the more his secret began to feel like betrayal. But Lucas couldn't stop now. Not until he knew. Could love exist without luxury? Could someone choose him without knowing the empire behind his smile? And yet, behind that disguise, his truth was a ticking clock. Because in a city like Chicago, secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect them. He'd come here searching for real love. But as the first week ended, one question haunted him. What happens when the truth finally walks through that door? The hum of the fryers had become the rhythm of Lucas's new life. Every beep, every hiss, every shouted order was a reminder that he wasn't in control anymore. And strangely, that was freeing. He was Luke Graham here, not Lucas Grant. A nobody. A man whose worth wasn't tied to a company or a last name. Maya Brooks worked the counter like a soldier on the front line, fast, fierce, and unflinching. She didn't flirt. She didn't complain. She got things done. And that made her impossible to ignore. Luke noticed things others missed. The way she always handed a free ice cream to crying kids, the small notebook she kept in her apron pocket filled with what looked like class notes, and how she'd leave exactly on time. Never a minute late, never a word wasted. One night, the manager, a wiry man named Craig, threw his arms in the air. "Late shift's yours, Luke. Maya's closing too." It wasn't a request. It was a sentence. They worked past midnight. The city outside had gone quiet, rain tapping against the windows. Maya hummed softly under her breath, a tune he didn't recognize. She caught him listening. "What? You never heard music before?" she teased, eyes glinting. He grinned. "Not like that." The air between them shifted, easy, unspoken, dangerous. For the first time in years, Lucas felt something real. Not scripted, not rehearsed. Just connection. "Why'd you take this job anyway?" Maya asked suddenly. "You don't seem like the fast food type." Lucas froze for half a second. The lie came smooth. Needed a fresh start. Got tired of chasing things that didn't matter. Her brow lifted. "So, what matters now?" He thought about it, about honesty about her, and said quietly, "Maybe figuring that out." When the clock finally hit 2 a.m., they sat on the curb outside, sharing cold fries and stories about nothing. She told him about her night classes in accounting, her kid brother she raised alone, her dream to open a small business someday. Lucas listened like it was gospel. He wanted to tell her everything, that the man sitting beside her could fund every dream she had 1,000 times over. But that wasn't the point. He wanted her to like Luke, not Lucas. Days blurred into weeks. The team started calling him Mr. Clean, because he stayed late to mop floors no one else touched. He didn't care. The work felt honest. Real. And every day, Maya's wall cracked a little more. But outside that greasy haven, reality waited. Lucas's assistant, Olivia, was calling nonstop. "You've been gone too long," her voicemail warned. "The board's nervous. Someone will notice." He deleted the messages. He wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. One night, Maya caught him staring at the city skyline through the restaurant window. "You look like a man with secrets," she said quietly. He turned, forcing a smile. "Don't we all?" She didn't push. But her eyes lingered longer than usual. She saw something there, something he couldn't hide forever. Later, as he walked home under the streetlights, he wondered how long he could live two lives. The billionaire in hiding, and the fry cook falling for a woman who deserved the truth. Somewhere between the smell of fries and the sound of her laughter, Lucas Grant, the man the world once knew, was disappearing. And in his place, someone real was finally being born. Lucas had begun to forget what silence felt like. The sizzle of oil, the thud of baskets, the constant chatter. It was chaos, but it grounded him. For the first time in years, people talked to him without wanting anything in return. They joked. They argued. They lived. And he was just Luke, the guy who worked Grill 2. Maya had started trusting him. That terrified him more than anything. They traded inside jokes, shared playlists, even argued over whose fries were crispier. The friendship was real, so real it made the lie sting deeper. Then came Friday night. A corporate inspection was coming, and panic rippled through the crew. Craig barked orders, workers scrambled, and Luke tried to stay invisible. But when the regional manager's SUV pulled up, he froze. The man stepping out was Raymond Pierce, Lucas's former business rival. He ducked behind the soda machine, heart pounding. If Pierce recognized him, the game was over. One photo, one word to the press, and his cover would explode across every headline in America. Maya noticed his panic. "You okay, Luke? You look like you saw a ghost." He forced a grin. "Just caffeine withdrawal." But she didn't buy it. Her eyes narrowed. She'd seen that same flash of fear when she asked about his past. Pierce toured the kitchen, clipboard tapping against his palm. "I'll need the staff roster for review," he said sharply. Lucas held his breath as Craig handed over the names. For a second, Pierce's eyes flicked toward him. Recognition hovered, but then passed. After the inspection, Luke stepped outside to catch his breath. The night air hit him like a slap. He wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. He was safe for now, but Maya followed him out. "You're hiding something," she said quietly. "I don't know what it is, but I see it in your eyes." He swallowed. "We all have secrets." "Yeah," she said, crossing her arms. "But yours looks heavy." That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He sat on his apartment floor, laptop open to an email from Olivia. "Pierce knows something. Get out before it's too late." But leaving meant walking away from Maya, and the only real thing he'd felt in years. The next morning, Maya didn't look at him the same way. She kept her distance, her smiles shorter, her questions sharper. Trust, once cracked, doesn't heal easily. By closing time, they were alone again. He wanted to come clean, to throw every truth on the table. But every time he opened his mouth, fear shut it. What if the truth destroyed what little they had? Then she said softly, "I used to think people who lied were the worst kind. But now I'm not so sure. Sometimes I think they're just scared." He looked up, hope flickering. Of what? Of being seen for who they really are. Her words hit like thunder. She walked out before he could reply. That night, Lucas realized something. Hiding his identity wasn't protecting her, it was protecting himself. And love built on fear was already doomed. The morning after Maya's words, the world felt quieter, heavier. Lucas walked into McDonald's before sunrise, apron in hand, the fluorescent lights flickering like judgment. Each step echoed with the weight of what he wasn't saying. He wasn't a line cook. He wasn't broke. He wasn't Luke Graham. He was a man living a lie, and that lie was starting to bleed through the seams. Maya arrived late, hair damp from the rain, eyes tired but determined. She didn't greet him. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. Lucas wanted to break it, to confess, but every time she passed him, her focus sharp as ever, the words withered in his throat. Around noon, a delivery truck stalled in the drive-through lane. Craig shouted, customers groaned, and Maya rushed outside to help push it out of the way. Without thinking, Luke joined her. Together, under the drizzle, they strained against the metal beast until it lurched free. When the truck finally rolled, she burst out laughing, genuine, breathless, beautiful. For a moment, it felt like forgiveness. Back inside, dripping and breathless, she finally spoke. "You could have stayed dry. Didn't think a guy like you would jump in like that." He grinned, catching her tone. Maybe I'm not like other guys. Yeah, she said, smiling faintly. I'm starting to think that too. But peace never lasts long when lies run deep. That night, as Luke closed up, his phone buzzed again, Olivia. He almost ignored it, but something in his gut made him answer. Her voice came sharp and panicked. Lucas, the press has a lead. Someone spotted you. You need to come home now. His pulse spiked. If the story broke, Maya would know before he could explain. He'd promised himself he wouldn't be that kind of man again. The one who let headlines tell his story for him. But time was running out. The next day, Maya was different. Guarded again. She'd seen him on his phone last night, pacing like a man on the edge. If you're planning to quit, she said quietly, just say it. I don't need another person disappearing. Her words cut deeper than she knew that he wanted to tell her everything. His real name, his reason for being here, the empire waiting for him beyond these greasy walls. But how do you confess a lie that big without sounding like a monster? Later that evening, as they cleaned in silence, Maya finally asked, Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life? He froze. Every day. Her eyes softened. Then maybe it's time to stop. Something broke inside him. He dropped the mop, hands trembling. Maya, there's something But before he could finish, Craig burst in waving his phone. Hey, you guys see this? Some billionaire's gone missing. Big tech guy, Lucas Grant. Crazy, right? Maya chuckled absently, scrolling through the article on her own phone. But then her smile faded. Her gaze darted from the photo to Luke. Back again. The resemblance was unmistakable. The jawline. The eyes. The same half-smile he'd given her 100 times. Luke, she whispered. What is this? He didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth had finally caught up. I end the silence that followed. Fries burned, timers beeped, and everything ordinary became painfully loud. Maya took a step back. Tell me this isn't you. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time since he'd arrived, Lucas Grant had no disguise left to hide behind. And the woman he loved was staring not at Luke, the humble worker, but at the billionaire stranger who had lied to her all along. The next morning, the world knew. The headlines screamed across every news feed. Billionaire Lucas Grant discovered working at Chicago McDonald's. Cameras swarmed the parking lot. Reporters shoved microphones through drive-through windows. Inside, chaos boiled hotter than the fryers. Maya didn't show up for her shift. Lucas didn't blame her. He barely made it through on his own. Each minute was an interrogation, from co-workers, from Craig, from himself. The secret was gone. The world saw him again, but he didn't feel like Lucas Grant anymore. He felt like a fraud pretending to be both men at once. By noon, Craig stormed up to him, red-faced. You lied to all of us. Do you know what kind of mess this is? We're trending. Lucas sighed, removing his visor. I never meant to cause trouble. I just wanted. Craig cut him off. To what? Play poor for fun. The words hit harder than expected. Maybe that's what it looked like to everyone else, that he walked out before the cameras could follow him. Chicago's winter wind hit his face like punishment. Everywhere he looked, screens, billboards, news feeds, his own face stared back. But it wasn't the man Maya knew. It was the billionaire who'd disappeared, the liar who'd been caught. That evening, he found himself outside Maya's apartment. He didn't remember driving there. He'd just followed the ache in his chest. The light in her window glowed soft and distant. He hesitated, then climbed the steps and knocked. The door opened a crack. Maya stood there, eyes red from crying. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. I know, but I had to see you. She crossed her arms. To say what? That you lied for love? That you tricked me into caring about a man who didn't exist? Her voice trembled between anger and heartbreak. I never wanted to trick you, Lucas said. I wanted to be chosen for who I am, not what I have. Maya shook her head. But you didn't give me that choice, did you? You decided for me. Her words landed like a final verdict that he tried to explain. How loneliness had warped him, how he'd built walls made of wealth, how she'd made him feel human again. But each sentence sounded hollow in the space between them. Finally, Maya stepped aside, letting him see the small apartment behind her. Books stacked on the counter. Her brother's jacket on the chair. Real life. The kind of life he'd tried to understand by pretending to live it. Go home, Lucas, she said quietly. You don't belong here anymore. And she closed the door. For the first time in years, Lucas felt truly poor. Not of money, but of meaning. He returned to his penthouse that night, surrounded by everything he owned, and it all felt worthless. The next day, Olivia called. You need to control the narrative. she said briskly. A press statement, maybe a redemption story. The billionaire who went undercover to understand the people. You'll look compassionate. But Lucas hung up. For once, he didn't want a story. He wanted forgiveness that he looked down at the McDonald's name tag lying beside him. Luke Graham. A lie, but also the truest version of himself he'd ever known. And for the first time since leaving that restaurant, he knew what he had to do. The morning after Maya shut the door, Lucas sat at his penthouse window, watching the city wake below him. The skyline stretched endlessly, every light a reminder of the life he'd built, the one that cost him everything real. His phone buzzed with messages from investors, journalists, and opportunists, but he ignored them all. For the first time in his life, silence was the only company he deserved. He spent the next few days avoiding the world that demanded answers. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Maya, her tired smile, her steady strength, her disappointment. The guilt didn't fade, it fermented into something heavier. He had to make it right, not with words, but with proof. So he did the one thing no one expected. He went back. Back to McDonald's. The cameras had died down, the frenzy moved on, and the crew that once laughed with him now barely looked up when he entered. Craig crossed his arms the moment he saw him. You got some nerve coming back here. I didn't come to work, Lucas said. I came to apologize. Craig scoffed. To who? The cameras? The customers you lied to? Lucas shook his head. To all of you. Especially to Maya. Craig's expression softened just slightly. She quit. Said she needed distance. The words hit like a sucker punch. For weeks, Lucas searched quietly. He reached out to her college, asked around the neighborhood, even checked night classes. Finally, one evening, he found her at a small community center tutoring a group of kids. She looked tired, focused, and happy in a way that didn't need him. He waited until the session ended, then stepped inside. She froze when she saw him. What are you doing here? She asked, folding her arms protectively. I came to listen, he said. Not to fix anything. Just to understand. She sighed. You don't get to show up and make it noble, Lucas. You lied to me. You built a fantasy and let me live in it. He nodded. You're right. I did. Because I thought the truth was the one thing I couldn't afford to give. Her eyes softened, but her guard stayed up. Then what makes you think I can trust you now? Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This isn't for me. It's for you. She hesitated before taking it. It was a check, large enough to cover her brother's school, her tuition, and the small business she'd once dreamed about. She looked up sharply. I don't want your money, she said. I know, Lucas replied. That's why it's in your name. You can tear it up, give it away, use it. But I needed you to know. I was listening. Silence filled the room. Outside, the city's hum carried faintly through the walls. Finally, she said, You can't buy redemption, Lucas. He nodded slowly. Then maybe I'll earn it. One shift at a time. Over the next week, Lucas showed up every morning. Not at the penthouse, but at the McDonald's he'd started in. No cameras. No press. He worked quietly, donated meals to the shelter across the street, and helped his old team clean up after closing. Word spread fast, but for once he didn't care who noticed. On the 6th day, Maya walked in. She didn't order anything. Just stood there, watching him wipe down tables. When he finally looked up, their eyes met. He smiled faintly. Didn't expect to see you here. She tilted her head. Didn't expect to come. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them wasn't angry anymore. It was uncertain but alive. Still trying to earn it? She asked. He nodded. Every day. She hesitated, then gave a small, almost reluctant smile. Then maybe I'll stay for coffee. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't a disguise keeping Lucas at McDonald's. It was hope. The first cup of coffee was awkward, too quiet, too polite, too full of unsaid things. Maya stirred her cup without drinking, her eyes darting between the table and the man who'd once made her believe in something simple. Lucas sat across from her, no suit, no watch, just a plain shirt and tired eyes. For the first time, there was no power between them. Just honesty. And silence. So what now? Maya asked finally. You play a humble billionaire for a few weeks. And then what? Back to the boardrooms. Lucas smiled faintly. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep making fries until I figure out who I am without the headlines. She arched an eyebrow. That's the first real answer you've given me. He chuckled softly. Guess I'm learning. They talked until the coffee went cold. About everything except the lie. About her brother, his school, her accounting classes. About how Lucas used to code in a garage long before he was rich. The longer they spoke, the more the tension eased, like thawing ice. For a moment, it almost felt like before. But the outside world wasn't done with them. A customer near the counter whispered loudly, "That's him, the billionaire." Phones lifted, cameras flashed, and in an instant, the fragile piece shattered. Maya's smile disappeared. Lucas stood protectively, blocking the flashes. "Let's go somewhere else," he said quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. They ended up walking through Grant Park, cold wind whipping off the lake. The city buzzed behind them, but here it was just two people trying to breathe. "You don't get it," she said finally. "This isn't just about you lying. It's about me being part of your story now. They'll twist everything." He looked at her, sincerity raw in his eyes. "Then let them talk. I don't care what they say anymore. I care about what's real. About us." She stopped walking, searching his face. "And what if I can't trust that it's real anymore?" He swallowed hard. "Then I'll wait until you can." They stood there in silence until the wind pushed them apart. Maya looked away first. "You should go," she said softly. "You've already done enough damage." Lucas nodded, stepping back, but his voice carried one final truth. "I didn't come here to fix my image, Maya. I came here to remember how to feel human. And you reminded me." He walked away without another word. The park swallowed him, his figure fading into the gray horizon. Maya watched until he disappeared, her hands trembling, not with anger this time, but confusion. Because even now, even after everything, her heart refused to let go. Later that night, she scrolled through her phone. Every headline, every photo, every opinion screamed judgment. But then she found one clip, a shaky video of Lucas helping clean trash in the park after his shift, smiling, laughing with strangers. No cameras, no PR team, just him. Something inside her cracked open. The next morning, Maya walked into McDonald's again. Craig raised an eyebrow. "You here for an order?" She smiled faintly. "No, I'm here to talk to Luke." He grinned. "Name's Lucas, remember?" She shrugged. "Maybe not to me." When Lucas saw her, everything stopped. The noise, the motion, the weight of the last few weeks. She stepped up to the counter, heart hammering. "I saw what you've been doing," she said softly. "And maybe I believe you mean it." He blinked. "So what now?" She smiled, just barely. "Now, maybe we can start again. No lies. No disguises." For the first time, the man behind the disguise and the woman who saw through it stood on even ground. For weeks, things felt almost normal again. Maya stopped avoiding him. Lucas stopped running. They met after her classes, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just for quiet walks where words weren't needed. But even in the calm, the world wouldn't let them forget. Cameras followed from across the street, tabloids painted her as the girl who tamed the billionaire. And every whisper carried the same cruel question. Was it ever real? Lucas tried to ignore it, but Maya felt every headline like a bruise. "They don't see me, Luke," she said one night. "They just see you and me as part of your story." He reached for her hand. "Then we'll write our own." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't that simple. You can't outrun fame. You can only learn to live with the shadow it casts. That he went back to his company reluctantly. This time not as the untouchable billionaire, but as a man who'd learned humility. He refused PR spin, refused photo ops. Instead, he started a new initiative. Higher pay and education funding for hourly workers in the chain that once humbled him. He called it the Second Shift Fund. When the cameras clicked, he didn't talk about redemption. He talked about gratitude for the people who'd taught him what real work felt like. And somewhere watching from her small apartment, Maya couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally becoming the man she believed he could be. But the past has a habit of showing up uninvited. One night, as they sat in her apartment eating takeout, a notification flashed across Lucas's phone. An offer for an exclusive tell-all interview. 7 figures for the real story of the billionaire who fell for a fry cook. Maya saw it, and her heart sank. "Are you going to do it?" she asked, voice quiet but sharp. He hesitated. "If I tell it myself, I can control the story. Protect you." She shook her head. "You don't get it, Lucas. You can't keep managing love like a company." The air went cold. Her words hit harder than any headline. They didn't speak for the rest of the night. When he left, he didn't know if he'd be welcome back. The city felt larger, emptier. Each light in the skyline another reminder of the distance between who he was and who he wanted to be. The next morning, Maya went to work as usual, trying to bury the ache in routine. But when she looked up at the TV above the counter, there he was, Lucas on live television, turning down the interview deal. "I don't need another story," he said. "The only truth that matters isn't for sale." Her chest tightened. He'd chosen silence over spotlight, for her. That evening, she found him sitting at their usual bench in Grant Park, a takeout bag beside him. No press, no cameras, just the man who'd finally stopped running. She sat down quietly. "You could have made millions," she said. He smiled faintly. "I already lost the only thing that mattered once. Not doing it again." For the first time, Maya reached for his hand without hesitation. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" He laughed softly. "Not when it comes to you." She leaned her head on his shoulder. The noise of the world faded, replaced by something simple, something real. Maybe trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a single moment, but 100 small choices made quietly between two people learning how to believe again. The following month brought a fragile kind of calm. Lucas spent his mornings at the company, his afternoons helping the community center, and his nights with Maya, simple, quiet nights that tasted like normal life. The press had finally started to move on, headlines fading to whispers. For the first time, things felt steady. Too steady. But calm never lasts long when money and power have your number. One morning, as Lucas prepared to leave his penthouse, Olivia, his assistant, was waiting by the elevator. Her expression was sharp, her tone sharper. "We have a problem," she said, thrusting a file into his hands. Inside the file was a photo Maya leaving her shift at McDonald's. A headline followed. "Grant's girlfriend receives anonymous payments, hidden financial trail?" Lucas's blood ran cold. "This is fake," he said. Olivia nodded. "I know, but it won't matter. The stories already live." Within hours, every network had picked it up. Reporters camped outside Maya's apartment, shouting questions, twisting rumors. Did the billionaire buy her love? Is she another gold digger? The same poison that once chased Lucas now came for her. Lucas arrived minutes later, pushing through the crowd. "Leave her alone," he snapped, escorting her inside. She turned on him the second the door shut. "You said this was over. You said they'd leave me alone." "I didn't know this was coming," he pleaded. "I'll fix it." She laughed bitterly. "That's what you always say. You fix things, you control things, but you can't control this." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "Every part of my life was quiet before you," she said softly. "And now I can't go anywhere without seeing your name. Maybe we were never meant to exist in the same world." Lucas didn't sleep that night. Instead, he called every contact he had, lawyers, editors, PR teams, trying to shut the story down. But the damage was already done. The public had chosen its villain. By morning, hashtags calling Maya a scammer were trending nationwide. Desperate, he called a press conference. Cameras crowded the room. "The reports about Maya Brooks are false," he said firmly. "She's never taken a dime from me. She's the most honest person I've ever met." It was the truth, but the truth doesn't sell like scandal. Afterward, he went to see her. She opened the door but didn't step aside. "I saw the broadcast," she said quietly. "I meant every word," he replied. "I know you did," she said. "But words don't erase the world we live in. You can walk through fire and still bring smoke wherever you go." He hesitated. "Then what do you want me to do?" She looked at him for a long moment, eyes soft but resolute. "Stop fighting everything. Maybe the only way we find peace is apart." And with that, she closed the door, this time gently, but with finality that felt heavier than anger. Outside, the reporters were gone, the street empty. Lucas stood under the streetlight, the cold wind biting at his hands. Somewhere between love and redemption, he realized, some damage can't be fixed with truth alone. It has to be endured. The week after Maya closed her door, silence became Lucas's only company. The headlines raged, the investors panicked, and the world demanded another statement. But Lucas refused. Every word he'd spoken in defense of her had only made things worse. So this time he chose silence, not out of fear but out of love. Meanwhile, Maya tried to disappear. She moved in with her brother temporarily, turned off her phone, and stopped going online. But anonymity is hard to reclaim once the world knows your face. Strangers whispered at work, classmates stared. The woman who once stood tall in every storm now felt hunted by shadows she didn't invite. One night, after closing, Craig found her sitting alone at a booth, staring into an untouched cup of coffee. "You know," he said gently, "for someone who hates attention, you sure know how to pick your men." She smiled faintly. Guess I fell for the wrong version of him first. Craig shrugged. Maybe. But the right version is still out there fighting for you. Across town, Lucas met with his board one last time. I'm stepping down, he said. Gasps filled the room. This company doesn't need a scandal. It needs stability. Lucas, the headlines will pass, one executive protested. No, he said quietly. They never pass. They just change targets. And I'm done being one. That night, he walked the streets of the city that had made him rich and lonely all at once. For years, he'd built walls of code and cash around himself. Now, stripped of both disguise and title, he felt something strange, freedom. The kind that hurt, but still felt right. The next morning, Maya opened her door to find a letter wedged beneath it. No name, no return address, just her name in neat handwriting. She unfolded it carefully. Maya, I've walked away from everything I built, because none of it matters without peace. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you find yours. You once told me love should feel like honesty. So here's mine. I'll keep loving you quietly, even if it means from a distance. She read it 3 times, every word sinking deeper. There was no promise, no apology, just truth. The kind she'd always asked for. And maybe that was what made it real. Later that day, she walked to Grant Park, the same bench where they'd once shared coffee, laughter, and silence. The city buzzed around her, but the bench sat empty, waiting. A soft voice behind her said, "Didn't think I'd see you here." She turned. Lucas stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking like he hadn't slept but still managing a faint smile. "I thought you left," she said. "I did," he replied. "But I couldn't leave without saying goodbye." For a moment, neither moved. Then Maya stepped closer. "You didn't have to give up everything for me." He shook his head. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because I finally realized who I was without it." She studied him, the man beneath all the layers. The man she'd once accused of lying now stood in front of her, truth personified. She smiled softly. "You're still terrible at goodbyes." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, I guess I am." The cold air hung heavy between them, but for the first time, it wasn't painful. It was peaceful. 2 people standing in the wreckage of a story that almost broke them, finally choosing peace over perfection. When Lucas turned to walk away, Maya didn't stop him. She just whispered, "Thank you." He paused, smiled without turning around, and disappeared into the fading snow. Months passed. The city changed seasons, trading winter's gray for the bloom of spring. The headlines that once burned through every screen had faded into digital dust. Maya's life began to rebuild quietly. She finished her degree, picked up more hours at the community center, and found peace in the rhythm of normal days. Yet some nights, when the wind hummed through her window, she still thought of him. Of Lucas, the man who taught her that truth could hurt and heal in equal measure. Lucas, on the other hand, had disappeared from the public eye. The media speculated, retirement, exile, a secret project, but no one really knew. The empire ran without him now. He'd become just another name in business history. And maybe that was what he wanted. For the first time in his life, Lucas Grant wasn't being watched. He was just living. Then one ordinary afternoon, fate intervened in the simplest way. Maya was working at the community center, hosting a fundraiser for local students. The air buzzed with laughter and music, paper streamers hanging crookedly from the ceiling. She stood behind a table pouring lemonade when a familiar voice drifted from behind her. "Do you still put way too much sugar in that?" She froze. Turning slowly, she saw him, Lucas, standing a few feet away, dressed simply, eyes softer than she remembered. The room faded around them. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then she smiled faintly. "Guess old habits die hard." He smiled back. "Some of them are worth keeping." They stepped outside to the quiet of the park behind the center, just like before. The city hummed in the distance, but here, the world felt still. "You look different," she said, studying him. He nodded. "That's because I finally stopped pretending. Turns out, the version of me you met flipping burgers was closer to the real one than I ever knew." Maya laughed softly. "So, no more disguises?" He shook his head. "No more lies. No more pretending to be less or more than I am." She smiled. "I like the guy in the greasy apron better." He grinned. "Good. He's the one who fell in love with you." They sat on the same bench where their story began, where so much had broken and rebuilt. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was full, alive, forgiving. Lucas glanced at her, a quiet hope in his eyes. "Do you think we could start again? Not as a billionaire and worker. Just 2 people who met in the wrong way, but maybe at the right time." Maya looked at him for a long moment before replying. I used to think love had to be perfect. Then I met you. And now I think it just has to be honest. He smiled. Then maybe we're finally getting it right. And this time, when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they'd always been meant to fit. The world kept spinning, the city kept moving, but for that one quiet moment, time stood still. No disguises. No headlines. Just two people who had learned, through pain and patience, that real love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up as yourself and being chosen anyway. As they walked away hand in hand, the sun dipped low, painting the sky gold. Lucas glanced at her with a teasing grin. You ever think about going back to McDonald's? She laughed. Only if you promise to handle the drive-thru this time. He chuckled. Deal. And for once, there were no lies left between them. Just laughter, honesty, and the kind of love that didn't need disguises anymore. If you believe love can survive the truth, and even grow stronger because of it, type love without disguise in the comments below.